Estes Park is probably one of my favorite mountain towns in the entire country, and there's a lot to do whenever you visit this town. So in this video, I'm going to break down some really interesting, meaningful local experiences for you to check out that will really give you a sense of everything the place has to offer in terms of its nature, history, and culture. So if you're hoping to really capture the essence of this location, this video is for you. First on the list is the Riverwalk. So the Estes Park Riverwalk is a paved path that runs through the heart of downtown Estes Park alongside the Big Thompson and Fall River. Lots of tourists only see small parts of this Riverwalk when they visit, but I would recommend you to start from the very beginning, which is near the Estes Park Visitor Center. You can find free parking there in a big parking garage. They also had free EV parking when we were there. But from there, you can make your way to Performance Park. So it's about 1.1 miles one way. And along the way, there's a lot to check out. You'll find these cool little outdoor instruments and chimes and xylophones or whatever they are. And there's some art installations and monuments. So it's an interesting walk. I think they recently redid it, and it's pretty fun to check all of these things out. They also have these things called pikas in the park, which are these little hidden pica statues, and there's like a dozen or so of them, and you can go and find them all over the place. They're actually kind of hard to find if you don't get a pamphlet from the visitor center, which will give you some clues. But after you've spotted them all, you can go and get a little badge, and it's just kind of a fun thing to do, especially if you're traveling as a couple or family and want a little bit of friendly competition during your visit. But my favorite part of the Riverwalk was just strolling around, checking out the beautiful forest scenery. You've got pine and fir trees, quaking aspens just lining this rushing river. It's incredibly scenic. You can find a bench and just kind of hang out by the water and enjoy the therapeutic sights and sounds of the river, which for many people is something they like to do, maybe with a hot cup of coffee or tea. It's just a great experience. And the Riverwalk's going to take you right behind Elkhorn Avenue, which is home to a vast amount of shops, restaurants, and cafes. So if you've never been to Estes, you might be overwhelmed by the number of options, seemingly an ice cream or fudge shop every few feet. So be sure to check out the guide linked below on the best places to eat. We have firsthand accounts of all of those places that we tried, and I think you'll find some of the recommendations to be really helpful. Lastly, be sure that you hit up the visitor center and you pick up maybe some maps and one of the visitor guidebooks, which has some coupons that can save you some money at the different restaurants and attractions in the area. Next on the list is Lake Estes, which is a reservoir located in Estes Park, and it's a popular tourist attraction due to its scenery, wildlife, and just the overall recreational opportunities. So it's a pretty big lake. It's got 185 surface acres, 5 miles of shoreline, and reaches a maximum depth of 45 feet. It was completed back in 1948 as part of the Colorado Big Thompson project, which was essentially a large-scale water diversion and storage project in Colorado to make sure people had the water they needed for irrigation demands and hydroelectric power generation in the region. One of my favorite things to do while in Estes was to just take our dog on a walk around the lake and enjoy the scenery, especially on a nice clear day when you have the snow-capped Front Range mountains to admire along with Long's Peak. It's just really beautiful. You can also walk around the dam area. There's a good chance you're going to encounter wildlife. We saw tons of elk just kind of always hanging around the lake. Sometimes they were even going for a swim, which I didn't even know that was the thing that they did. Also, if you have a little bit of luck, you may be able to see some bald eagles. They like to hang out on top of the power lines. So when you get to that side of the lake, be sure to be looking up or you might miss them. A lot of people like to rent paddle boards, kayaks, and other small boats to enjoy the lake, and you can rent those from the Lake Estes Marina. And I believe you can also get a temporary fishing license along with bait at that marina as well. So if you're into fishing, you can do that in the lake. There's also fly fishing that takes place near there as well. So if you're looking for parking, you can head to Fisherman's Nook, which is on the north side of the lake where there's free parking. I believe that it's paid in other spots. Someone told me that they don't really enforce that, but I mean, that's going to be, kind of venturing at your own risk. You could get hit with some type of fine or fee if you got caught. But if you wanted some more details on exploring the lake, be sure to check out the guide linked below. Next is the Stanley Hotel. So this was built in 1909 by F.O. Stanley, who had a huge influence on Estes Park and its formation. But this landmark was actually the inspiration for Stephen King's novel, The Shining. So after Stephen King stayed at the property for only one night, it was just before it closed down for winter, he reportedly had the entire story of The Shining created in his head. The hotel has also hosted famous personalities like President Theodore Roosevelt, John Lennon, and a lot of others. And the hotel is also known for its paranormal activity. So you can experience the hotel in a number of different ways. So one, you can actually just stay at the hotel and maybe even try to get into room 217, which is specifically known for its supernatural activity. Some people have only lasted a matter of hours in that room, so you may not want to go into that booking, too lightly, and you might want to think things through a little bit. You can also opt for a tour. So they have different types. They have a ghost tour where you can explore all of the little eerie corners and haunted rooms. Or you can do what we did, which was a shining tour, which is kind of a ghost tour, but also a tour that focuses on the history and origin of the story. And it was extremely interesting to me. You go through some of the areas that are known for hauntings, and we did this like right around sunset, so it was starting to get dark, and honestly it was a little bit creepy, but it was really fascinating learning about all of the different elements of the story. And it even allows you to see a glimpse of the axe, or one of the axes that were used in The Shining, along with a recreation of the bathroom from room 237 that was seen in the movie. So again, if you're a fan of The Shining, you absolutely want to do that tour. It was highly enjoyable, and I could not recommend that enough. Next is the Historic Park Theater. So this was built back in 1913, and it's one of the oldest operating movies in the entire country, and it's really become a landmark in the area. So in 1922, Ralph Gwynn assumed ownership of the theater, and that's when he built the landmark tower that you see, and it's called the Tower of Love. And he built it as a tribute to the love of his life, but it's not quite as sweet a gesture as you might imagine. So on the day that they were meant to get married, the love of Gwen's life vanished, leaving him basically standing alone at the altar. And so I guess maybe seeking some form of twisted closure, he built the tower to represent the beautiful love of his life, who was beautiful on the outside and hollow and empty on the inside. So if you're accustomed to all of the amenities of a fully equipped modern theater, you'll find that your viewing experience at this historic theater offers a departure from that kind of cookie cutter multiplex experience, but that's kind of what gives it its charm, and it's still a great place to embrace that vintage cinematic experience. So while the seats might be a bit stiff, you can find cushions in the back of the theater to help you get comfortable. And you'll find all the staple concessions that you normally would at a theater. So I think it's a great way to catch a movie. We actually watched The Little Mermaid while we were there, as it had just came out, and I thought it was just a great, interesting historical experience while in town. Another place you want to check out is the rock shop. So there's a couple of different rock shops to check out. I'd recommend maybe to visit the Red Rose Rock Shop, which features all sorts of different minerals, gemstones, and fossils. So I actually was never a rock shop person before, but I didn't realize that actually it was extremely interesting to go into these places. They have all types of different fossils. It's really similar to a museum, and I just thought it was really interesting. So you'll come across, dinosaur bones, petrified wood, megalodon teeth, all of these things. And it's also a great place just to learn about the different types of gemstones and crystals. There's a lot of great souvenir opportunities. If you have a rock lover in your family or friend circle, a great place to buy one of those. If you go out back, there's this interesting little pond where there's all of these ducks. They also have some of these like huge chunks of different minerals and rocks out there that are interesting to see, including I think it's called Ewell marble, which was the type of marble used in the Lincoln Memorial and the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. So just kind of interesting. If you like geology, if you like rocks, definitely want to stop by there. Next is the Estes Park Museum. So this is a free museum, and you can explore the origins of the region. You can learn about key players in the development of the town and how it emerged as a tourism mecca. So they have some cool exhibits in there, like they have a 1909 model EX Stanley steamer runabout, which was a really impressive vehicle for its time. It could reach speeds of up to, I want to say, 65 miles per hour. They also have a historic cabin from the early 1900s. So it's a pretty small, pretty compact museum, but I did think it was Really well done in terms of laying out the origin and the history of the town, and it just being, one of those early tourist towns. If you like travel, if you like kind of the history of travel, I think it's a great stop. Next is the Burch Ruins. So these are the well-preserved remnants of a stone bungalow that was built in 1907 and owned by Albert Al Burch, who at one point was the editor of the Denver Post. Starting in 1903, Burch spent his summers in Estes Park, and after a few years, he really developed a deep affection for the place, and that's when he commissioned stonemason Carl Piltz to construct a small bungalow on this really cool rocky outcropping that kind of overlooks the city. But in 1907, the bungalow was destroyed by fire, leaving behind only the stone ruins, which can still be explored today. You can see a bunch of fine details in the structure. If you want to learn more about this, just check out one of the guides linked below. But admission is free to explore here, and it's really a short and easy hike to kind of get up in the ruins, check out the views, and it's really peaceful. There's some trees up there that give you some shade, and there's like the creek that's running below. So it doesn't take much time to get up there, and I would really recommend it if, again, you're a fan of history and you want to see what one of these old stone bungalows maybe would have looked like. Next is the peak-to-peak scenic byway. So Estes Park is located at the beginning or the end, depending on which direction you're talking about, of one of the most popular scenic highways in Colorado. It's called the Peak-to-Peak Scenic Byway, and it's a great place for a scenic drive, especially during the color change, which would be sometime in late September or early October. So in addition to some really great views along the way, you'll be able to stop and see the famous Rock Chapel. You can stop in some of the towns like Allen's Park, which is known for its amazing cinnamon rolls. You'll head through some other areas like Nederland, where you'll find historic carousel. There's also plenty of side routes to old ghost towns. You have some really beautiful hiking areas in that area as well. So there's a lot of history, a lot of just cool things to see along the way. And then towards the end, you'll go through the competing casino towns of Black Hawk and Central before making your way out. And those are some interesting towns. If you like to gamble, that may be a place you want to go. Otherwise, I thought they were just kind of cool to check out and admire, and a lot of history there as well. So depending on how many stops you want to do, you can definitely knock out this drive in about 1.5 hours one way. So it is a reasonable day trip to do, and it just kind of depends on your goals. But if you are heading out of Estes Park and into Denver, or maybe into the Georgetown area further into the mountains, I would highly recommend you to give this route a shot. Another place on the list is the Stanley Home Museum. So this is a new historic house museum in Estes Park. Originally, it was built in 1904 by F.O. Stanley and his wife, and it's a fine example of colonial revival architecture, and it was used as Stanley's summer home for decades. So it's furnished with period pieces throughout the rooms. The museum, it really just kind of takes you back to the early 1900s while allowing you to learn about the remarkable contributions of this couple. I mean, they really did make Estes Park. They did so much in terms of the infrastructure, talking about the roads, the power, the Stanley Hotel. There's a very long list of their contributions. So as you go through these different rooms, you can learn more about the Stanley story, and you just really realize how far his impact was. And it's also pretty inspiring to hear about all of the accomplishments. If you have kind of an interest in entrepreneurship, I think that you'll appreciate it. And I think if you're interested in history or antiques, you'll also enjoy the experience. Next is the historic power plant, which is a former hydroelectric power plant located in Estes that was built in 1909 by, once again, F.O. Stanley to provide electricity for the Stanley Hotel and ultimately the entire town of Estes Park. So this plant was damaged in the Lawn Lake flood of 1982, but was restored and is now open to the public as a museum. That flood was really catastrophic, really interesting to learn about, which you can do when you visit the power plant. But you'll get a good overview of the Stanley family, and you'll get taken through the plant to get up close and personal with the turbines and the generators that were used. So for people with like a mechanical or engineering background, you'll probably really love all of the technical insight that you can get. For the average person like myself, you might find yourself getting quickly lost in all of it, but still it was interesting just to come away with some tidbits of information and learn about that catastrophic flood. It's also a free experience. The thing is that you just need to kind of time up your visits. They have weird hours and they offer guided tours. If you catch them outside of the scheduled time slots, they still may start it for you, which is what they did in our case. But just kind of be aware that they do try to run them on the hour. And if you do go through with the free tour, maybe consider a donation just kind of to appreciate their time and effort. Next is the farmers market that happens every week. I believe it's on Thursday, although that might be subject to change. And I think when we were there, it ran from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. And I really love this because it brought in people from all over the region, and we were able to check out a lot of interesting products from small businesses. We came out with some really delicious handcrafted chocolate peanut butter cups, in addition to some honey infused with whiskey barrel flavor. So you can find a lot of different things here, everything from tamales to bison sausage. And if you have a craving for breakfast, there's a lot of good breakfast foods to check out here as well. So if you are there on a Thursday, definitely look into the farmers market, because I guarantee you that you will not be disappointed. And that's going to run probably from June through the end of September. So it's more of a summer thing, but don't pass up on it. One thing we were not able to do because of the weather is the Estes Park Memorial Observatory. So this is another free activity, obviously great for anyone who has an interest in exploring the night sky. They have a 16-inch telescope, which is pretty darn big if you know anything about telescopes. So you can get some really great views of galaxies, nebulas, and star clusters. The thing is, you need to contact them ahead of time, and you want to do it well in advance to make sure that you get a slot, because there is limited ones available, and they're only going to run them on certain days. They're not going to be open when the moon's bright, and then you have to see what the weather's going to be like. So you have to get a little bit lucky. We were unlucky, but next time we're there, we're definitely going to give it a shot, because it seems like a lot of fun. My very first time doing something like this, it excited me so much. I actually went and bought my own telescope, got really into astronomy, still am into it. So you never know how this type of thing can inspire your interest and passions. So give it a shot, because at the end of the day, it's free. So you're really not going to be missing out on any money or anything. And last but not least is Rocky Mountain National Park. So for a lot of people coming to Estes Park, Rocky Mountain National Park is the #1 attraction, and for good reason. So the first thing I would say about this, which you may already be familiar with, is to get familiar with the timed entry system and how it applies to the specific time that you're visiting. So you know that there are multiple entrances to the park. Depending on which one you're going in, you may have a different type of timed entry system. Typically, we always just choose to wake up really early and enter the park before that time system is in effect. It's great for us, but for a lot of people, that's just too early. And also, that also means you're hiking in the cold, maybe in the dark. And again, that's just really not for everyone. But it is a great way to get around it. Otherwise, you can just go through that reservation system and make sure that you're abiding by it. But if you're looking for great hiking options, in my opinion, Rocky Mountain National Park is the best park for hiking in terms of bang for buck. You don't have to work very hard for some pretty amazing views. I really like the Bear Lake corridor. This is one of the busier areas of the park, but there are several hikes that you can do from this area. If you're looking for something strenuous, you can do the hike to Sky Pond, where you're essentially scrambling alongside a waterfall, which is a really cool experience. A little daunting for some people, not for everyone. Chasm Lake is another great strenuous hike. The hike to Dream Lake or Emerald Lake is more of a moderate category and still offers stunning scenery along the way. It can get quite crowded, so you don't want to wait too long to do that hike. And if you're looking for something just easy, kind of low key, you can take a stroll around Bear Lake. It's definitely not an issue. I'd also recommend looking into a hike into the Gem Lake Trail. So this trail is, it's in Rocky Mountain National Park, but it's closer to the city of Estes Park. So it kind of gives you a different feel, your lower elevation, and you get kind of more acquainted with the mountainous terrain surrounding Estes Park. So it's not quite as stunning as some of those other trails, but if you just want to kind of see what the scenery is like, you can make your way up there. And it's a picturesque lake. Some people kind of hate on it a little bit, but I think that it makes for some great photographs, especially if the lake is really still and you get that glass effect. So I personally liked it, but you know, there are so many hiking options when you go to Rocky Mountain. It's kind of hard to narrow down, but all of the ones I mentioned above are great. If you don't want to do hiking, just make sure you at least drive through the park and maybe in the evening or in the morning when the wildlife gets active. Every time we've visited Rocky Mountain National Park, we've had some great sightings. You'll see tons of elk, sometimes just an absurd amount of elk out there. Every time we've gone, we've seen moose. And usually you just got to look for people that are pulled on the side of the road. And, there's probably like a really beautiful elk or maybe a moose there. Some people have seen black bears. You'll probably see some marmots and deer. So it's just a very active park, very beautiful park. No visit to Estes Park really is complete without venturing into Rocky Mountain National Park. So I hope that you found this video helpful in giving you really kind of meaningful things to do while you are in Estes Park. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe. Check out all of the links below that take you to more in-depth guides for these different destinations. And I look forward to making more of these videos in the future.